Hello everybody, this is the second part of the Vote application development tutorial. In the first part, we created a quick prototype of Vote application with mock data. In this episode, we will integrate Firebase Authentication and Google Cloud Firebase Data Store. So that means if you created a vote in the server in the backend, that will be loaded in the mobile application. So let me show you the demo first. In this vote application, we now integrated Google Sign-in and Anonymous Sign-in through Firebase Authentication, and also we integrated Google Cloud Firestore database. So now if you click Google Sign-in, you will see a pop-up in the iPhone simulator. And after you sign in, this data, this vote list comes from basically Google Cloud Firestore database. So here you can see that there are currently 4 documents. So these 4 documents are showing in here. So for example, here in the last document, it says that which country is based. So here I am seeing that list. So I click this thing and click continue. And here you see there are 3 countries are showing: US, Malaysia, Bangladesh. So here you see that US, Malaysia and Bangladesh. Okay, and there are some values. So if I suppose select Bangladesh, you see in the Firestore database currently it is showing 13. So if I click continue, you see Bangladesh is now showing 14, and here Bangladesh is now showing 14. So that means when I select Bangladesh and click continue, I marked my vote for the country Bangladesh. Okay, so that's that increment basically reflected in the Google Cloud Firestore database, and here in the result page we also see that. So this is the thing we have done, and also here you will see a pop-up menu. So if I click log out, you will see the authentication is done, and we successfully log out from the application. In this episode, I mostly copy paste the code I already written from my GitHub repo so that I can give you a quick idea that how to integrate Firebase Authentication and Firebase Data Store. If you face any kind of problem, just ask me in the comment section so that I can check the question and give you a reply. But if you just try to read the code and listen what I said, then I think you can quickly understand that how to integrate this kind of features in a Flutter application. So let's get started. So all the updated code you will find in my github.com/mahmudahassan/flutter_firebase_vote repository. You can click the release tab, and here you download this prototype ready. So from there we will start to implementing these 2 features. I think you will notice that in this repository at the bottom side, you will see the authentication flowchart where we are basically using the provided state management library in this application, and also all the third-party libraries we use so far are mentioned in this readme file. Last episode we completed this prototype. So there are 2 buttons, some mock data, and you can mark a vote which basically does nothing, and you will see a bar chart. Okay, so now we will integrate the Firebase authentication first. Install Firebase Auth, just click this 2 link mentioned in my repos readme file, and here you will see there is a Firebase Auth plugin and you need to install this thing. So copy this line, open your project pubspec.yml. So after charts_flutter, paste this thing, save the file and click packages get, and this library will be installed in your project. So here in the readme section you will see that what you need to do to work this plugin in iOS version and Android version. Okay, so anyway, so there are some things you need to modify in your project. So the first thing that for Android integration you have to here it is saying that enable the Google service by configuring the Gradle script as such. So add the class path to the project, then Android build Gradle file. So here come to this your project and open your Android, then Gradle. Let me check first Android, then build.gradle. Okay, Android, and there is a build Android and build.gradle. So here you have to copy this 2 line. So let me first check that if this thing is copied. So in the dependencies there is already build Gradle 3.2.1. so this thing is there, so you do not need this thing. Add the Google service class path, so copy this thing and paste it here. So under this line, save the file. Okay, and now add the second step is that add the apply plugin to the project Android app build Gradle. So here copy this line, and here it is saying that add this at the bottom. So here at the bottom, come here and pasted this line. Okay, we need to install Google sign-in. So open this link, Google sign-in and Firebase plugin. So here you will see that how to install this library. So copy this line, open your project and pubspec.yml, and here after Firebase _auth paste this line, save the file and click packages get. So this plugin will be installed in your project. And here in the readme section you will see what you need to do to work this library in both Android and iOS. Here in the iOS integration or Android integration, you will see that first it is saying that register your application. Okay, so you have to create a project in your Firebase console. So here I already did a project vote brief, so I will create a new project. So click add project in your Firebase console and give the project name, suppose vote demo. Here I give the project name and click continue, and then here click continue again, and here you have to use a account. So I give default account for Firebase, or if you do not need this Google Analytics, just click off this section and click create project. So after the project created, you will see that your new project is ready. Click continue, and here you will see your new project. So in this case it is vote-demo. Okay, now click project overview, or here in the setting and project setting. And here if you check the documentation for Android, there is basically you do not have to write anything, but for iOS integration there are something you need to do. So here all the steps are mentioned from 1 to 7. So let me show you. So come at the bottom and click iOS, and then give a bundle ID. So for example, I am giving net, I think div vote demo 1. Suppose this is the bundle ID, but for your case it will be different, and give a application name if you want, nickname. So vote demo, and then click register app. So after you click register app, you will see that you need to download Google service-info.pl. So download this file and it will be downloaded. So here now check the documentation. It is saying that move or copy Google service-info.pl into the my project or your project iOS runner directory. So now open your project, and here you will see iOS, then runner, and here you need to copy this file. Okay, so copy this thing and paste it in this runner directory. Click OK, and it will be moved in here. So we completed the step 3. Now it is saying that open Xcode, then right click on the runner directory and select add file to runner. So let me open my Xcode. So I open the vote directory, then iOS directory, and here there is a runner Xcode project. So I need to open this thing. After I open, let me check the documentation again, that what I need to do. Here it is saying that open Xcode, then right click on runner directory and select add files to runner. Select Google Service Info Pl from the file manager. Okay, so right click on runner directory. So here is the runner directory, and now click add files to runner, and here you have to mention this. You see there is a Google service-info.plist file. So just select this file and click add. And now come to the documentation. A dialog will show up and ask you to select target, and click runner, select the runner target. Okay, then add the CF bundle URL types attribute below into the your project iOS runner info.plist. Okay, so there is a info.plist. So if you want, you can open this as a source code. So then you will see an XML style file, and now copy this this all this thing and come here and paste it within the, so I also copy the comment so that later I can understand what I have done. So within the dict directory and paste it here, and here here in this this thing, copy it from Google Service info.plist key reverse client ID. So you need to change this data. So to do that, just open this Google Service info.plist, and here you will see that reverse client ID. So double click this thing, copy this thing, come here info.plist and replace this thing by your Google Service -info reverse client ID. Okay, so I have done all the things. To use Google sign in your Flutter application, you need to do some extra configuration. So visit console.developers.google.com/API/credentials, and here you can select your app. So click the project, and here click all, and here we created basically vote demo for this application. Select this vote demo, and here you need to configure something. The first thing you have to do, update the OAuth consent screen. So come here, you can, if you want, you can give some icon. You have to select your email, here the support email, then you have to select the domain. So here in the authorized domain section, if you have any domain, you can add that domain. So here, for example, there is a firebaseapp.com already, a project already created, so I use the application homepage link for there. So you have to create https or https, yes, both firebase.com/, and if you want, you also have to use a privacy policy. So basically in my application I use my personal domain. So if you have your personal domain, you can use that domain in here, and then click save. Our OAuth consent screen configuration is done. Now come to the Firebase project, and here click the authentication and then click sign in method. So before enabling any of this sign in, just refresh the page, because you updated the OAuth consent screen in different page, so that need to reflect it in here anyway. So in our application we are going to use Google sign in and anonymous sign in. So click here and click enable, and then click save, and then come here anonymous, click here and click enable, and then click save. So in our Firebase project authentication, we enable both Google and anonymous sign in. Now come to our project directory, and here in the lib directory, so just close this top directory, Android and iOS, and in the lib directory create a directory. So package, and directory name will be services. Okay, and here in our just move this service.dart file in here, services, within this services the service.dart, and also create two more files. One dart file is constant.dart, and another dart file will be and authentication.dart. Okay, I did a mistake. So in the services directory, the file name will be constants, basically here constants. All right, now in the state directory create a file, new dart file, and the file name will be authentication.dart. Okay, so there is one state provider state already declared, so we created another file authentication.dart in this state directory. Open authentication.dart, constant.dart, and service.dart from the service directory. So here in the constant, define these two constant. K username is the username and KUID is the UID, and now update the authentication.dart file. So instead of writing all the code from scratch, I just copy and paste my previous code that I wrote. So here in the authentication.dart, here is the code. So you have to basically import these two library, Firebase auth underscore auth slash Firebase underscore auth dot dart and Google underscore sign in dot dart file. Okay, and then you have to create instance. So here when you call Firebase auth dot instance, this is basically a singleton. So one instance of this Firebase auth will be assigned in this underscore auth variable. Okay, and then you also need to instantiate a Google sign in object. So now here basically expose user, I define this method to expose the user, where the username and user ID must have to provide, and then it basically returns a map. And then here in the get current user, I define this function to return the current user. To if a user is login, then you can get that user by calling underscore auth dot current user, and you see that this underscore auth basically the Firebase auth dot instance. Okay, so if that user is null, so that means there is no current user logged in. Here we basically check by an if condition, that if user not equal to none, then expose this user, and otherwise just return null. And also I define a method is user signed in. So similarly it check that if there is any current user or not, and you see that all these methods are basically asynchronous function. Okay, so you must have to use the await and when you will call this auth and any method of that instance. And then I also defined a function sign out. So here it is basically called auth dot sign out, and here I define another function on authentication change. So when user is suppose user is not login, but user is give the authentication, I mean the username and password, and click login. So if user successfully login or successfully log out, this on authentication change will be called. So basically from our provider we will use this function and pass a function, so that every time any authentication change, that function will be called. And finally here you will see two function I define, sign in with Google and sign in anonymously. So basically this code I actually use from here. If you come here and you see that Firebase setup or Firebase plugin, if you click this thing, this line, and here you will see that there are Firebase auth. Okay, so just click this thing, and there you will see that there is a repository GitHub. So here in the packages you will see the code. So basically Firebase auth, and if you click this, then click the lib or click the example, and here in the lib directory you will see that how to sign in code. Here you will see all the sign in code like email, Facebook, then sign in with email and password, then Google sign in, then anonymous sign in. All the code are basically described in here. So I copy and paste that code and little modified for my application. So here you will see that sign in with Google function. This is an asynchronous function, how to sign in here. And there is another function I define, sign in anonymously. Okay, so this is the part of the authentication.dart file. So now come to the state directories authentication.dart file. So here I will also paste my code that I written before. So here I think I need to change one thing, that would be vote the application name. All right, okay, so here in this case, in the state directories authentication.dart file, I define some constant like kauth error, kauth success for to define some string, and I also imported service authentication.dart file in this file. So here in the state, basically I am using the provider. Okay, so here I define a class authentication state that will implement the change notifier, and then I define some functions. So authentication state is the default constructor. Here I call the clear state. Here is I define the clear state. Basically the auth status, username and UID will be null, and then I called the on authentication change. So on authentication change basically defined in this service. You see that in on authentication change. So I call this function and pass a function. So on authentication change I pass another function. So here is the anonymous function. So here I pass this thing, and I finally call notify listener. So every time user log in or log out, I here basically this thing, basically this on auth state change, that function will be registered and this function will be called. So in any cases the user log out or user's token expired, this on authentication change will be called, and this thing auth status, username and UID will be null. So this authentication state provider, we can know that whether user is log in or log out. And there is another two function, login and logout, I define in this authentication.dart file in the state directory. So suppose here I define the login and I can pass any service name. The service name, if I pass kauth sign in Google, I mean service name is Google, then I will call the sign in with Google, otherwise sign in anonymously. And these two functions are basically defined in here, sign in with Google and sign in anonymously. So basically sometimes you may ask me that why I use this function within the state provider, because suppose you are using different authentication in another situation, you do not want to use Firebase but you want to use a different thing. So in that case you just update this file and you just fix this state file. So you do not need to hard code or fix in your main application. So this is why we created layer in an application. Okay, now let's create another file in the lib directory. Create a utilities file, and here let's define two functions, go to home screen and another is go to login screen. So basically when our user will log in, okay, so we will want to redirect user to the home screen. So that's why we are calling this future.microtask function here. So basically if you Ctrl Z, click Ctrl Z, you will see that what this async function future.microtask will do. So here it is basically saying that creates a future containing the result of calling asynchronously with a schedule microtask. So when you use any function within this function future.microtask, it basically added in the queue, and when it will process the in the background when your main task will be completed. So here in here we basically check that if there is the authentication state, here we are accessing the authentication state and check the auth status, that if it is successful then we redirect user to the home screen. Otherwise when we call go to login screen, when we will log out the user, we will use this function, and here we check that if auth status equal to null or not. If it is null, then we redirect user to the launch screen where user can log in again. Let's update our main.dart file. So first import package, then vote, then state, then authentication.dart. So we are importing this authentication.dart provider, and then also import package vote, then utilities. Okay, all right. Now here in the multi provider, in the providers list, after put a comma here and then copy this line again, change notified provider, and here use authentication state. So basically in our main.dart file we are passing both vote state and authentication state in the child section. So any child can access this vote state or authentication state. Now here let's define another function, a pop-up function. So for this I basically created a function that returns a widget, and that function name will be get action. So here basically we need a pop-up button logout, so I define that function here, get action. And here in the home section I can pass that action. Okay, so here what you have to do, so before in the app bar type actions, and here in the widget directory, widget list, basically just call this get actions and pass the context. Okay, then you will get the pop-up button in the home screen. Also similarly, copy this actions thing and paste it in the app bar within the result directory. Okay, so user can log out from the home screen and as well as the result screen. And here in the login button, so come to the login screen, so launch screen basically. So open the launch screen. Now we need to update this file. Here in the launch screen, first import some libraries. So first we need to import provider package provider.dart, then import, then package our application, then state, and then authentication state, then also import package, then board, then utilities library here. Okay, now update some code. So here before the Google sign in button, write a if logic. So if auth status auth state.auth status. So to access the auth state, let's update this container. So click alter enter and wrap with a new widget and type consumer, because we are accessing provider state management library, and within the angle bracket use authentication state. Okay, and here then use the builder function. So in the builder function you will get a builder, then auth state, the state instance, and a child. And here in the return section, just copy this container part. So come here and cut this thing, remove this part, and here type return, click here and click write a semicolon. Okay, so we are using consumer, so that in that case we can access this auth state instance. So we are checking that if auth state.auth status equal to k auth loading, then we just show a text widget. Okay, that loading. What I want to wrap these three widget within a container, and I want to use an if logic, that if auth status equal to null or if auth status equal to error, then show this container. So here I will write a container widget container, and in the child section I want to use column, and in the column children I will paste this login button, size box, and anonymous login widget. So that case, so suppose user is not login, the application just launched, that means the auth status equal to null, or user log out, then the auth status also null. So in that case I want to show user that sign in button. Or if user tried to log in but there is any error, in that case I also want to show user this login button. That's why I use this if condition. And finally here put a comma after the container and put another if logic, that if in any case auth status is equal to error, if there is any error occur, then I just want to show user in widget that error, nothing fancy. Okay, for simplicity I did that. Now let's update our sign in button. So just remove this thing and paste this code. So here basically provider.off, and basically we are using this authentication state, we are accessing this thing and we are listening it's true, and then we are just calling this login function and we pass the service name as a service. So here in the sign in we just need another variable string service, and now this sign in here from the sign in context we just want to pass kauth sign in Google, kauth sign in Google, and here in the second case kauth sign in anonymous, and let's save this file. Thing we need to do in the utilities, you will see that there is a go to home screen function we define. We need to call this thing in this widget build function. So go to home screen and pass the context. So in any cases, suppose when you launch the app, or if in any cases the state change, like user log out or log in, so in that case it will be called automatically go to home screen, because it is within this build method. Okay, so in that case it will check that in the utilities that if there is auth status equal to success, then it will redirect to the home screen. So let's run this application. So here now we are seeing this launch screen, and let's click this Google sign in, and then it shows a pop-up. Click continue and give an email address and give the password. Click next, and you see now based on this function, basically when we log in successfully, our state change, that state is defined in our authentication state. Okay, so our authentication state when changed, and the auth status will be changed, and here from our launch screen the go to home screen will be called, and we redirect to the home screen. Okay, and these are basically the mock data. We will also update this data to the real Firestore data anyway. So here the thing, and here you see that there is a pop-up menu is showing, so log out. So we define this pop-up in our main.dart file. So let's open this main.dart file, and here you will see that we define a function pop-up menu button get action. Basically this function create this widget. Now if I click log out, so it redirects me to the launch screen. Now if I click anonymous sign in, so basically for anonymous sign in you have to do nothing. It basically create a random UID, and if I go to the Firebase data store, and here is something showing. So if I come here in the user section, and let's refresh this page. Okay, I have to sign in again. And here you will see that in our vote demo app, I use my demo I think at Gmail, and I use anonymous. Both user are recorded in this Firebase authentication user section. So that means our Firebase authentication is working. If I click log out, and it will be redirect to the launch screen again. So let me sign in again using this Google sign in, and you see in this time I do not have to give my password, because Firebase authentication basically handle that thing. So it basically records some kind of cookie in this application. So when I click Google sign in, it as I previously log in using my authentication, so it basically took that data and just authenticated me, and our app now redirects me to the home screen. So our authentication is basically done. Integrate Firebase Cloud Firestore database in our application. So here in the Firebase console, if I click database, there are basically no database we created so far. So let's wait for the console, and here I just click create database, and choose the test mode option. Okay, so if you want to deploy the application in production mode, then you have to understand the rules of Firebase Cloud Firestore database. So anyway, we just select the start in test mode and click next, and then click done. Now you will see the Cloud Firestore database, and here let's create a collection. So our collection ID will be the votes. Okay, so type votes and click next. And now it is said that at the first document, so I just use auto ID for the document ID, and the first every document should have a title field, and that will be string. So suppose I write here as a value maybe what country you like most. Okay, a question mark, and add some more fields. Suppose I give some name Bangladesh, and this will be a number, and for number, yes, for number it will be suppose 0. Then I click another field Malaysia, then number 0, and another country I want to add, suppose US. Okay, and click number and 0, and click save. So basically our votes collection is created, and that has a document, and that document has some fields. So basically when user mark a country as a vote, it will be updated here in the num field. Let's create another document. So in this case I also use the auto ID for random ID, and here for the field what car brand do you sorry, it will be title, and the value will be what car brand do you like most, and add some field, suppose BMW, then number 0, then type Honda, save number 0, then type suppose Toyota number 0, and then type another option like Proton and number 0. So save this thing. So basically in our votes collection we created 2 documents. Now we need to update some code. So in our in my Firebase Flutter Firebase vote repo, you will see there is a Cloud Firestore link. So just open that thing, and here this we will need to install this library in our application. So click installing and copy this line, come to your project and open the pubspec.yml, paste the code here, line here, click packages get it, so that library will be installed. Now close this thing, and here in the readme section you will see how to use Firebase Cloud Firestore in your Flutter application. Now open the services.dart and import some file. So let's import package cloud firestore.dart file 1, then import, then package, then provider.dart file, and then import package, then vote, and then the state and vote.dart. So we need that vote.dart state in this service file. Let's define 2 constant here. Basically this get vote list is the mock data, and in the bottom we are integrating the Cloud Firestore real data. So here I define 2 constant, k votes and k title for the votes and title. Okay, let's define an asynchronous function get vote list from Firestore, where you can pass build contest, and this will be an asynchronous function. And when you want to use this build contest, you also need to import the material UI library. So import, and then package, then flutter material.dart. If you import that file, then there will be no error will be shown here. Now update this function by adding some more code. So here basically we are calling this Firestore, and this Firestore basically comes from this library cloud_firestore. So when you will use firestore.instance, this basically singleton instance will be created, and here you have to call the collection. So our collection name is votes. Here you see in the here we define votes, and that we define as a constant here k votes. So we are calling this k votes as a collection, and then we are calling this get documents. So get documents, when we call, then we will get all of these documents. Okay, and then we will basically use another function inside the then method, and in that function we are using some more code. So here basically we define a vote list, an empty vote list, and where you will see that we are using this snapshot.documents for each. So we need to access every of these documents. So that's why we are using we are looping this for each, and we will get this document snapshot object of document. And then we are basically adding this vote list. We add another map Firestore doc to vote and pass this document. So we define another function, and that function is the map Firestore doc to vote. So here when you pass the document, it basically so you will get a document with like this format. Okay, so some vote may have 3 options, some vote may have 4 option or 5 option, but every document should have a title and any field. Okay, any number of field, and we use this document ID as the vote ID. Okay, so here in this map Firestore doc to vote, here you will see that we are using this vote ID. So if you open our vote model, what you will see? You will see our vote model. Okay, and now if you see this mock data get vote list, you will see that every vote has a vote ID, a title, and some option we use as a mock data. So just if you just read this code, you then understand this part. Okay, so here basically we are we use the document ID as the vote ID, then we created an option list, and then we are looping that option using the for each, and if we found that is a title, so if that key is a title, we use that title as the vote title. Okay, because every vote should have a title, and for other case that will be added as a option, and finally we use the vote option and pass that option. So we will get that thing, that vote instance here, and we'll add this that vote instance in this vote list, and finally here in the provider.auth and in the vote state we are assigning the vote list in the vote list. Okay, so the vote list we created here should be assigned in the provider state, but we yet not define the vote list in the provider, so let's do that. So now if I open the vote state, so here vote state, there basically a underscore vote list is defined, but we need to define a set function. Okay, so we need to define a set function. So after this get vote list, define this set vote list, and when a new value is passed, then this vote list will be updated with the new value and the notify listeners will be called. So if I save this thing and go to the service section, you see that error will be gone from here. So we need to update this vote state. So here first we need to here in the load vote list we use basically the mock data. Okay, so just remove this two line or comment out this two line. We also do not need the notify listener here. So here we use get vote list from Firestore, and we let's pass the context, and here you see that we do not have any context is passed with this load vote list. So write a build context here and pass that in here. Okay, get vote list, and then also in the clear vote list we need to update this function by vote list should be null. So in when we want to call this function clear state, so our vote list will be null. Okay, also in the service, so basically get vote list from Firestore, this function will retrieve data from the Firestore, Google Cloud Firestore, and map Firestore doc to vote, basically a helper function that will model this data to our vote model. And we also need two other functions. Suppose when user want to mark a vote, that user selected an option, then we will call this function mark vote, and here you see that we will pass the vote ID and option, and we will call Firestore instance collection kvotes document vote ID and update data, and then in the option you will just use field value dot increment 1. Okay, so here the option, suppose user select Bangladesh. Okay, so here the option will be Bangladesh, and this is basically a constant of Firestore library. So field value dot increment 1, when you call this function, then it will increment the existing value. And then there is another function we defined, retrieve mark vote from Firestore. So after we updated this data, we also need to retrieve that data before we show the result. So that's why I define this function. Okay, and here you see that I also use this map Firestore doc to vote function, the helper function here. So our service.dart is also basically done. Now let's update our home underscore skin.dart file. So first import packages, then package, then or just use the dot then state, then vote. Okay, so import this vote.dart in here. Now add an if logic in this expanded before expanded, so that if provider.auth vote context listen true, it will be listen true, and vote list not equal to null, only then show that. That means suppose our application retrieve the data, okay, and the vote list is not null, vote list contains some data, only then shows this choose or vote option, otherwise show nothing. Later we will integrate an on load. Okay, Finally, define another function, mark my vote. So here you will get use the vote ID. Okay, so how you will get the vote ID? If you use the provider dot of state and vote state, and you will use active vote dot vote ID. So when user select a vote, you will get the retrieve the vote ID. Okay, and also when user selected an option, that selected option in active vote also updated. So you will access this two ID and then call the mark vote. So basically mark vote is defined in this services, or yes, services. So let's import that thing here. So import dot 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 services, then services dot dart. Okay, so then this mark vote will work. Now let's update some more thing. So here on step continue, in this section, when the current step equal to 1 and step 3 required is true, then call this submit vote function. Okay, and here you go to the result screen. So after submit vote, go to the result screen and save this file. So there is an error showing. Let me figure it out why it is showing. So load vote list, here you have to pass the context. Okay, so pass the context and save this file. Let's run this application. So it is showing restarted application, and suppose I click anonymous sign in, and it comes here and shows nothing, and I am seeing an error that service missing, unhandled exception, missing plugin exception, no implementation found for method query get documents on here service.dart. So this get documents has some issue. Anyway, so let's figure it out why it's showing. So one thing I can do, that suppose here in the project setting there is a bundle ID I provided, net I think div dot vote demo 1. I need to pass this in the Xcode project. So I open the project and come here in the Xcode section, open the runner.xcode and come click here, and here it is showing net I think div dot, and here pass this vote demo 1 and save this file. Okay, so now close this Xcode and rerun the project again to see if the error occurs again or not. Now I am again seeing the launch screen, and let's click anonymous sign in, and okay, all right. Okay, so this data basically coming from this vote demo from here, where I define two field, what country you like most and what car brand do you like most. Okay, so yeah, this thing is so far working. So the Firestore cloud database is integrated, and if I click, you see the option I'm seeing here. Okay, so I also need to update some more code, like when I select this thing and I mark suppose Malaysia 1, and I need to, suppose I select Malaysia, or I click cancel and select what car brand do you like, and I suppose click BMW and click continue. You see that BMW is showing here 1, but here nothing is updated, so I need to update that thing again. So come here and let's update some more code. Now let's open the result underscore screen file and define a function here within this result screen class, and this method name is retrieve active vote data. Okay, and you can pass a context, and here what it will do, it will use the provider of vote state and use the active vote, and first retrieve the vote ID. If the active vote is not null, then retrieve the vote ID. That's why we are using here null operator. Okay, and then I will call retrieve mark vote from Firestore, and retrieve mark vote is defined in here in the service. So let's import that service file here, import package, then vote, then services service. Okay, and now this error is gone. Then I call this retrieve mark vote from Firestore, where I passing this vote ID and the context. So here in the services I will use this provider, and also using this helper function I update the provider active vote state, so that when this function will be called in our state, where is the state? Here is the vote. This active vote ID will, active vote object or instance will be retrieved with the updated result. So let's rerun this application again, and it is showing here. Okay, and suppose I click, okay, I open the Firebase store as well and put it here and I click what car brand, and this time I select suppose Honda. Okay, and click continue. You see now it is showing Honda 1, BMW 1, but BMW 1 is showing the previous result, but Honda 1 is not showing the updated result. So I need to fix some more code. So what I need to do, basically I define this retrieve active vote data, but I yet not call this retrieve active. So within this result screen build method, I have to call this retrieve active vote data and pass the context. Okay, and another thing I need to do to update this create chart method. Okay, so here what I want to do, I just cut this thing and use a consumer widget, and here I will access the vote state, and then I have to define the builder function where I will pass the context, vote state and child, and here I will return this code and save this file. So I think this time it will work fine. So let's rerun this application again, and I am also in the Firebase, and suppose I select what car brand do you like, I click continue. This time I suppose select Honda and click continue. You see now Honda is updated to 2 and BMW is 1, and I am showing the result live again. I click home again, suppose this time I select the car brand again, and this time I suppose select Toyota and click continue. You see it's working. And also from here, if I click here and click logout, I can go to the launch screen. Basically the application is done, but I want to add some more things. So here I want to add a loading screen. So here you see that I mentioned a link loading third-party library. So here copy this loading dependency, come your project, open the pubspec.yml, paste it here, save the file and click packages get. Now come to your home screen and put the import these two library. One is loading.dart, another is a loading indicator, ball pulse indicator. So basically if you open the repository of GitHub, you will see all the documentation, and there are some examples that what kind of loading indicator you want to add. And now what I need to do, I basically want to add another if logic in here. So if provider.of vote state vote list, if the vote list in the state vote state library, in the vote state the vote list, if it is null, then show the ball pulse indicator. Otherwise when the vote list is not null, then show the all the things. So let's rerun this application again, and let's log out and click anonymous sign in again. So basically sometimes it is not showing the loading indicator. So what we need to do, we have to remove this application from the simulator and close the okay, I delete this application, click done and close the simulator. And now let's open the simulator again. Here open iOS simulator, and it will open the iOS simulator again. Let's run this application again. The application launched, and you see now loading screen is showing, and then I see the data. Okay, so in this time the launch screen, or I do not need to log in, because in the Firebase authentication that found that previously I logged in this application in this device, so that's why it's not prompting me to log in again. So suppose I now select what country do you like most, select continue, suppose Malaysia, click continue, and here I see the updated result, and I can click log out from here as well. So we have done successfully integrated by adding Firebase authentication and Google Firestore database in our application. So I hope you understand that how to integrate Firebase Authentication and Google Cloud Firebase Data Store in a Flutter application, how to integrate multiple providers to manage the estate. If you still have any confusion or still have any question, just ask me in the comment section. Thank you for watching and keep learning.